Chasing views, likes, and validation. Some influencers push boundaries far past common sense, ignoring danger, warnings, and even basic logic. In this video, we're looking at 6 shocking influencer accidents, each one the result of seeking attention. It was September 18, 2016 in Chiang Mai, Thailand. The late morning heat clung to the fenced clearings of a small safari park north of the city. Tourists lingered near shaded walkways as handlers fed elephants along a muddy stretch of paddock. Luis Martin, 29, was a Spanish travel micro-influencer who had built a niche around risk. His social media feed favored raw, spontaneous encounters, swimming close to reef sharks, climbing unstable cliffs, and feeding macaques by hand. Though his following was modest, his content had recently attracted partnerships from small adventure gear brands seeking exposure in Southeast Asia. He prided himself on authenticity, boasting of no filters, no fear, and minimal editing. His trips were self-funded through sponsorships and donations from followers eager to see him push boundaries others avoided. Wildlife tourism in northern Thailand revolved around elephant sanctuaries, many of them semi-legitimate operations catering to foreign travelers. At the privately run Mae Rim Elephant Camp, close access to adult elephants was heavily restricted, particularly mothers with calves. Handlers relied on vocal cues, bamboo poles, and the controlled use of smoke and percussion to maintain order. Methods safe enough under supervision, but dangerous if disrupted. Luis, however, saw risk as marketable honesty. That morning, handlers were preparing a feeding session when Luis began filming near a wooden barrier separating visitors from a cow and her young calf. He asked a trainer if he could stand inside the pen briefly for a closer shot, offering a tip. The handler refused, warning that the calf was easily startled and the mother protective. Luis lingered near the barrier, filming on his phone. When staff attention shifted toward another group, he ducked under the rail, camera held out, narrating in upbeat tones. Other tourists nearby assumed the trainer he'd spoken with had given him permission and continued watching, unaware of the danger building in front of them. From the security hut, a staff member noticed the breach and called out, but Luis ignored it, stepping closer to the pair with a snack in hand. The mother elephant's posture stiffened, ears widening, trunk curling inward. The handler shouted again, running forward. The elephant trumpeted sharply, pivoted, and advanced in 2 strides. Witnesses later described her striking him with a single sweeping motion of her trunk, knocking him several feet through the air. The elephant stamped and tossed her head, striking a wooden post that collapsed beside the body. Handlers used smoke canisters and drumming to draw her away while 2 staff members dragged Luis toward the gate while others called for help. Emergency responders from Mae Rim Sub-District arrived approximately 15 minutes later and transported him to Nakhon Ping Hospital, where he was formally pronounced dead on arrival. Thai investigators ruled the cause of death blunt force trauma resulting from unauthorized entry into a restricted area. The camp was cleared of negligence but faced severe reputational damage. Following the incident, bookings at the facility dropped by half, and animal welfare organizations cited the event in campaigns, warning that such animals should not be kept in captivity. Luis Martin's social media pages were deactivated within 2 days, following requests from his family and Thai authorities. It was June 3, 2017, in Brooklyn, New York. A ring light hummed in a narrow kitchen window of a converted loft, illuminating the labels of homemade superfood tonics lined neatly for show. Ava Green was about to begin a live stream she believed would change her small wellness brand forever. Ava, 24, had spent 2 years cultivating her identity online as a gut health visionary. With a background in communications rather than nutrition, she marketed herself as an approachable guide to natural living, emphasizing authenticity over credentials. Her upbeat videos and bright aesthetic drew a small but loyal audience. She sold ad spots to low-tier wellness companies and relied heavily on affiliate commissions to supplement her part-time cafe job. Her latest focus was kombucha, a fermented tea rich in probiotics but potentially hazardous if brewed incorrectly. Though she often claimed to love experimenting, she had little understanding of food safety or microbiology. Unbeknownst to her, commercial brewers carefully controlled pH levels and fermentation time to prevent contamination, but home methods varied widely. Ava had purchased a starter culture from a local online supplier and modified her recipe to boost potency by extending fermentation. She filmed herself stirring the sugary tea and placing it in airtight jugs rather than the cloth-covered jars typically used for home brewing, a choice that created a sealed anaerobic environment. Untrained but confident, she skipped standard acidity checks to keep pace with her posting schedule. That Saturday, she planned to taste test her first completed batch live. She announced it as her supercharged kombucha reveal and promised followers instant results. Friends later said she'd ignored a sour, almost rancid odor coming from the bottles, dismissing it as part of the natural process. One friend reportedly warned her to open a window because it smells off, but Ava laughed and said it was fermenting stronger. The jugs had been sealed tightly for nearly 2 weeks in her warm apartment, where indoor temperatures that week averaged around 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Around 20 viewers logged on in real time as she arranged them beside her phone stand, cheerful and unaware that she had cultivated more than bacteria. The footage begins with routine chatter. Ava uncorks the first bottle, gas hisses loudly, and foam spills over. She laughs it off, wipes the counter, and pours a glass. She comments jokingly about how strong it smells but insists it's normal, reassuring viewers that she's used to potent batches. She drinks a few sips on camera, describing a tangy flavor and moving on with her talking points. Nothing unusual appears in the footage beyond a brief cough and a comment about it being extra fizzy. After a few minutes, she ends the stream, thanking viewers and teasing a follow-up post. The next morning, Ava texted a friend that she'd been feeling dizzy and nauseous overnight, blaming it on exhaustion. By evening, she complained of blurred vision, slurred speech, and difficulty swallowing. When her friend visited and found her struggling to breathe, she called emergency services. Paramedics transported Ava to Woodhull Medical Center, where she was placed on a ventilator. Despite intensive treatment, her condition deteriorated over the next 2 days as paralysis spread downward through her body. She was pronounced dead on June 6th, nearly 60 hours after drinking the contaminated tea. Forensic analysis of the kombucha revealed high concentrations of botulinum toxin produced during anaerobic fermentation. Toxin levels were consistent with Clostridium botulinum growth in a sealed, low-acid environment, something not typical in properly brewed kombucha. The contaminated starter culture traced back to a small, unregulated supplier, later shut down by health authorities. Investigators concluded that improper storage and extended fermentation under sealed pressure created lethal conditions. Within days, Ava Green's social media accounts were deleted at her family's request. Her death prompted local health departments to issue new safety warnings about home fermentation. Several wellness forums quietly removed DIY fermentation threads, citing safety liability. It was September 3, 2018, on the Algarve coast of southern Portugal. The sea was deceptively calm that evening. Down near the rocks below Ponta da Piedade, Paulo Mendes was setting up his camera for what he called a close encounter with the tide. Paulo, 27, had built a modest following on Instagram by documenting hidden wonders along the Portuguese shoreline. A former hotel concierge from Lagos, he had shifted to content creation after winning a small photography contest sponsored by a local eco-brand. His style was simple: barefoot exploration, natural lighting, handheld footage of shells, crabs, and anemones that he called small universes. He was known for taking unnecessary risks to get cinematic angles, lying on cliffs, climbing slick rocks, wading into shallows during swells. Late that summer, Paulo wanted something dramatic before the tourist season ended. He chose the rock platform beneath a limestone arch near Praia do Camilo, a notoriously slippery zone where the tide could rise several feet in minutes. The Portuguese Maritime Authority had issued strong wave advisories that morning, warning of sneaker swells driven by offshore systems. Locals knew to stay high during evening tides. But Paulo never heard this, nor did he research about it. He invited a friend, Luis, to help film from the safer upper ledge above. The plan was to capture close-up footage of a tide pool glowing with sea urchins as the sunset reflected in the still water. By 7:40 p.m., the tide had begun to push in, but Paulo was still crouched on the lower shelf, his camera mounted inches above the pool. Luis' phone recorded from above as Paulo narrated about coastal biodiversity, his voice muffled by wind and distant surf. The video later recovered by investigators shows subtle changes first. Foam beginning to creep higher up the rock, the sound of a deeper swell approaching from the outer reef. Paulo shifts his footing but keeps filming. Seconds later, a sudden larger wave, what coastal researchers call a sneaker surge, breaks over the lip of the platform. The force struck from the side, knocking him off balance. The lens jerks upward as seawater floods the frame. Luis shouted for him to move back, but Paulo was already pinned between jagged rock faces, struggling to regain footing. The current dragged his gear bag and tripod away as he tried to crawl toward higher ground. The next wave, larger still, slammed him sideways, his head striking the rock edge hard enough to fracture his temple. Luis's video captures the flash of white foam, Paulo's arm flailing briefly before disappearing from view. Several tourists on the nearby boardwalk and cliff lookout also witnessed the incident and called 112, Portugal's national emergency number. Local lifeboat crews from Lagos and Portimão stations launched within minutes, but the swells made approach difficult. Rescue swimmers from the Maritime Police reached the site about 40 minutes later and located floating gear near the channel. They recovered Paulo's body nearly 2 hours later, caught in a narrow passage between rock spurs. The medical examiner listed the cause of death as blunt head trauma and hypothermia, consistent with prolonged immersion in cold water and repeated wave impact. Authorities reviewed both phones to reconstruct the event. Analysis confirmed that the wave series aligned with the predicted high tide surge warnings issued that afternoon. Paulo's final footage circulated briefly before being removed at his family's request. The Algarve Maritime Office added new multilingual signs near the cliffs that same month, reminding visitors that calm water is often the most deceptive stage of the sea. It was June 14, 2017, in downtown Los Angeles. On a 5-story service building near Spring Street, Tess Riley was setting up for what she called a raw recovery vlog, a short, unscripted clip she believed would restore her engagement after several weeks of stagnation. The shot was meant to look daring, urban, and improvised. Tess, 30, had built a small online audience by blending lifestyle vlogging with behind-the-scenes looks at urban architecture. She was not a professional filmmaker, but had been pushing her production value after a small camera accessories company offered her an affiliate deal if she could produce cleaner drone footage. Her videos often featured herself climbing rooftops or filming city sunsets without proper permission. She justified these risks as part of her authentic aesthetic, even though friends said she had little technical grasp of flight laws or rooftop safety. Urban drone operation required tight precision, especially around high-walled streets where GPS signals cut out and crosswinds formed near vents. Tess's friend had lost a mid-range quadcopter the week prior when it clipped a street lamp and crashed onto the metal awning of a cafe. Instead of letting building maintenance or the cafe's management retrieve it, Tess saw an opportunity. A retrieval video, no edits, just her recovering the drone for real. That morning she packed a small camera, a harness she rarely used, and a handheld stabilizer. Her plan was to access the cafe's adjacent rooftop through a neighboring office building and film the descent herself. A technically complex and unauthorized maneuver that she underestimated. At approximately 5:10 p.m., she reached the low roof where the drone could be seen resting about 12 feet below, on the corrugated metal awning. Though the building had 5 floors, the service platform she accessed sat several levels down, overhanging the alley. Wind gusted between the buildings. A maintenance worker from the office next door briefly warned her that the walkway was unstable and not intended for load-bearing, but she was eager to get the footage. Witnesses later said she was focused entirely on framing the shot, positioning her phone on a ledge, adjusting her posture to face the camera, narrating as she reached out for the fallen drone. CCTV footage from the opposite building and two bystanders' phones captured the sequence. Tess leaned across a corroded handrail, one foot braced against the ledge, the other searching for balance. As she extended her arm, the rail shifted outward. For a moment, she appeared to catch herself, gripping a nearby satellite dish mount. The mount flexed, then detached, and she fell forward into the alley. Witnesses described the sound of metal snapping, followed by a brief cry. The fall was estimated at just over 30 feet. Tess struck a utility pipe on the way down, then hit the concrete loading area near the cafe's rear entrance. A passerby ran toward her, calling for help as another dialed 911. Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics were dispatched within 3 minutes, arriving alongside police. Video shows two people attempting chest compressions, while others waved down first responders from the street above. When emergency crews arrived, she had no pulse. They continued resuscitation efforts for several minutes before pronouncing her dead at the scene at 5:28 p.m. Police later reviewed footage from multiple angles to confirm the fall's mechanics. Building and safety inspectors examined the structure the following morning, noting the corroded railing and missing bolts, but concluded that Tess's unauthorized access and positioning beyond the guardrail were the direct causes of the fatal fall. Family members declined interviews. Screenshots from private group chats later circulated on social media, showing relatives joking about her final vlog and sharing memes referencing the incident. It was September 4th, 2015, in Johannesburg, South Africa. In the dim light of a service lane behind a small shopping strip, 26-year-old Liam Masiko was setting up a video that would end before it properly began. Liam was part of a small wave of South African prank creators trying to break through on social media. His channel specialized in light humor, mock interviews, street dares, and improvised public stunts. It had a few thousand subscribers, mostly local youth. He'd been frustrated that his content plateaued while others who took bigger risks gained traction. That pressure grew after a Johannesburg beverage brand offered him minor sponsorship if he reached 8,000 followers by year's end. He had no safety team or technical knowledge, but he was known for being willing to do what others wouldn't. His friends described him as impulsive, confident, and always chasing a reaction rather than a story. Utility corridors on the city's outskirts were common shortcuts, gravel strips lined with transmission poles carrying 11 kilovolt distribution lines. Residents treated them casually, walking or parking beneath them despite warning signs. Liam saw potential in the setting's eerie glow, where arcs from loose insulators occasionally flickered at night. He planned a live stunt called the Live Wire Dance, teasing followers that he'd perform under the power lines to show fear who's boss. He bought a handful of metallic party balloons and a collapsible aluminum pole to add visual flair. That evening, 3 of his friends joined him with 2 phones and a small LED light for the stream. The weather was still, the dusk humid. They started setting up around 6:30 p.m., waiting for the light to fade just enough for the overhead lines to show faint corona glow. At 6:42 p.m., he started filming. The footage shows him laughing, music playing through a portable speaker as he moves beneath the nearest pole. His friends can be heard urging caution, but he waves them off and begins dancing, raising the balloon pole for rhythm. In the video, his jacket flutters in the wind, and a faint crackle is audible from overhead. Seconds later, his friends saw the critical moment. As Liam swung the pole upward, its tip neared a sagging conductor less than a meter overhead. A visible blue arc, likely around 4 inches long, snapped from the wire to the metal pole, instantly grounding through his arm and chest. The frame flared white as the feed cut to static. The second camera, still running, showed his body convulsing briefly before collapsing. His friends screamed and backed away, fearing more current. A nearby shop employee, hearing the pop and cries, went to the scene and called emergency services. Municipal workers isolated the circuit within minutes, allowing medics to approach. They found burn marks radiating from his right palm across his forearm, consistent with a contact arc. Liam showed no vital signs. Resuscitation was unsuccessful. Investigators later matched the event to a recorded voltage fault at 6:43 p.m. Utility technicians confirmed that a damaged insulator had been leaking charge, but that no contact would have occurred without a conductor introduced from below. The coroner's report cited fatal high-voltage electrocution, with extensive entry burns to the right hand and shoulder. Officials deemed the death accidental but entirely preventable. Liam's friends shut down their joint account and released the footage only to police. Local prank creators cited the incident in their videos, criticizing Liam's stupidity, garnering more views than his own videos ever had. It was November 4th, 2017, in Manchester, England. Inside a second-floor flat in Didsbury, bright ring lights glowed against fogged windows. A woman was alone, setting up for what should have been another routine filming day for her online cleaning channel. Naomi Ellis, 29, had built her niche on relatable real-life cleaning hacks, using whatever products ordinary households kept under their sinks. She'd once worked part-time at a supermarket, organizing displays for eco-cleaners before deciding to film her own short tutorials. Her charm was her lack of polish, half-smudged eyeliner, worn jumpers, and a practical, upbeat tone. By late 2017, she had nearly 10,000 followers and occasional product sponsors for non-toxic sprays and microfiber cloths. That modest success pushed her to experiment more aggressively to stand out. She wasn't trained in chemistry, didn't bother to research what she was mixing, and had no idea how dangerous some combinations could be. Friends later described her new videos as careless and flat-out stupid, proof that she'd traded common sense for clicks. Her followers had begun to expect daily uploads, and Naomi felt the pressure. Competitors were experimenting with harsher industrial products, and advertisers hinted that impactful results performed better. That morning, she set up her phone on a tripod aimed at a stained bathtub, the caption pre-written, "Cleaning myths tested." The plan was to mix common cleaners and show which combinations worked best on hard grime. To her, it was routine. Simple ingredients, simple demonstration, mixing bleach with other agents. The windowless bathroom had no ventilation beyond a small extractor fan already clogged with lint. A bottle of household ammonia, labeled only multi-purpose cleaner, sat among several unmarked spray bottles, something investigators later noted as a key hazard. Naomi started by pouring bleach into a shallow bowl. The footage later reviewed by investigators showed her chatting casually about old-fashioned tricks. She added baking soda and vinegar first, laughing as it fizzed. Then, after checking her notes, she poured household ammonia into the same bowl, explaining she wanted to test old internet claims about its combined power. Within seconds, she began to cough, waving a hand in front of her face, assuming the irritation was mild. The camera captured her eyes watering, her breathing quickening. She stepped backward, unsteady, muttering something indistinct before doubling over out of frame. The phone continued recording as faint coughing echoed off the tiled walls. Investigators later estimated she remained in the room for less than 90 seconds after mixing the substances. The reaction produced chloramine gas, which rapidly combined with the bathroom's high humidity to form aerosolized droplets that irritated the airways more severely. A neighbor in the adjoining flat heard a dull thud and rhythmic wheezing before it stopped abruptly. When no one answered the door during their welfare check, they called emergency services. Paramedics arrived 10 minutes later, finding Naomi collapsed near the bathroom doorway, unresponsive. Hazmat responders detected dangerously high gas concentrations, and rescuers had to ventilate the apartment before entering fully. Despite resuscitation efforts, she was pronounced dead on scene from acute respiratory failure. Toxicology reports confirmed severe pulmonary irritation, consistent with chloramine inhalation. The concentration levels suggested she inhaled several deep breaths of gas before collapsing. Medical examiners also noted superficial chemical burns around her nose and mouth, a known effect of chloramine exposure in confined spaces. The footage, later used in the coroner's report, provided a clear timeline showing the rapid progression from mild coughing to incapacitation in under 2 minutes. Naomi's social media accounts were deactivated within days at her family's request after online mockery spread. Her small circle of friends held a quiet service in Manchester, noting how a routine filming setup, one light, one camera, and one impulsive choice, had ended a life shaped by misplaced confidence in the harmlessness of household work. Thanks for watching. Like these stories, click here for more.